Welcome back to another dark corner of Fallout lore where the secrets buried beneath the wasteland run deeper than anyone imagined. Today's story takes us into the hidden infrastructure of Project Atlas, a continental tunnel network connecting every vault, and the terrifying truth about what has been controlling the wasteland from below. Let us descend into the darkness together. I found a door in Vault 81 that was not on any official schematic. Behind it, a maglev platform and rails stretching into darkness that should not exist. My name does not matter anymore. What matters is what I found 3 weeks ago in the maintenance level of Vault 81 and what it means for everything we thought we knew about the vaults. I am a vault technician level 4 clearance, been maintaining the electrical grid here for 6 years. I know every wire, every circuit, every power draw in this place. Or I thought I did. It started with an anomaly. Power consumption did not match our output. Small discrepancy, just 0.2%, but in a closed system like a vault, that is impossible. Energy does not just vanish. I ran diagnostics for 3 days straight, checked every terminal, every light bulb, every water purifier. The numbers did not lie. We were bleeding power to somewhere that officially did not exist. I started mapping the electrical conduits, physically following the cables through the maintenance shafts. Most technicians do not bother with this, they just trust the schematics. But I needed to find where that power was going. On the lowest maintenance level, sublevel 7, I found something that made my blood run cold. A conduit running straight into solid rock, not concrete, not Vault-Tec standard reinforced wall, actual bedrock. I spent 2 days chipping away at the wall with a plasma cutter, working night shifts when nobody else was around. The rock was fake, some kind of composite material designed to look natural. Behind it was a door, massive, 30 feet tall, with both Vault-Tec and Department of Defense insignias stamped into the metal. 2 symbols that should never appear together on the same door. The access panel was dead, no power, but I am a technician. I know how to hotwire just about anything. When the door opened, the sound echoed for what felt like minutes. Beyond was a tunnel, perfectly circular, 30 feet in diameter. The walls were made of some pre-war alloy I had never seen before. Absolutely pristine. No rust, no degradation. 200 years underground, and it looked like it was built yesterday. I stepped inside and my Pip-Boy started going crazy. Radiation levels, normal air quality perfect, but it was picking up electromagnetic signatures I had never encountered. I walked for 20 minutes before I found the platform. It was labeled Station Node 81 Alpha, and when I activated the terminal, everything I thought I understood about the vaults shattered. The hologram that appeared was dated October 20th, 2077, 3 days before the bombs fell. A woman in a pristine Vault-Tec executive uniform stood in the recording, but behind her I could see military officers, men in suits that screamed pre-war government. She spoke directly to the camera like she was addressing someone specific. "Welcome to Project Atlas, America's underground highway. You are standing in Node 81 of 122 integrated vault stations. This network represents the culmination of 12 years of classified construction, the largest infrastructure project in human history, and the real reason Project Safehouse exists." I had to replay that 3 times before it sank in. The vaults were not separate, they were nodes. Station stops in a massive underground transportation network. The hologram continued, and with each word, my understanding of the world rewrote itself. Atlas stood for Advanced Transportation Link and Subterranean System. 18,000 miles of tunnels crisscrossing beneath America like a hidden nervous system. Each vault was built not just as a shelter but as a waypoint, a supply depot, a population center for a civilization that was supposed to thrive underground while the surface burned. The maglev trains were designed to move troops' equipment and VIPs between vaults at speeds exceeding 400 miles per hour. Each tunnel segment had its own power source, geothermal taps going down 5 miles where the heat of the earth itself powered the network. Life support systems, automated defense turrets, repair drones, all still active after 2 centuries. I found the access codes on the terminal. Someone had updated them. Recently, within the last year. That is when I knew this was not ancient history. Someone was still using these tunnels. Someone had been traveling beneath the wasteland this entire time, while the rest of us scraped by on the surface, isolated and alone. The maglev car was sitting on the platform like a metal coffin, streamlined and silent. I should not have gotten in. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, seal that door, forget I ever found it. But I am a technician. I solve problems, I find answers, and the biggest question in my life was staring me in the face. I activated the car. The acceleration was smooth, silent, terrifying. One moment I was standing still, the next, I was moving faster than any vehicle I had ever been in, hurtling through darkness so complete, my Pip-Boy light could not penetrate it. The car had basic controls, and according to the route map, I was heading to Station Node 45, designation Vault, 45 200 miles west. The journey took 30 minutes. When I arrived at the platform, I understood the true scope of what had been hidden from us. The station was massive, the size of a small city, multi-level platforms with supply crates stacked everywhere. Medical equipment, weapons, ammunition, food synthesizers, all preserved in hermetically sealed containers. Enough supplies to support thousands of people for years. But someone had been here recently, fresh boot prints in the dust, empty ration containers still containing food that had not spoiled. Updated terminal logs showing access just 2 weeks prior. I checked the access signatures, enclave, encryption protocols. The remnants of the pre-war government had been using Atlas to move undetected across the wasteland for decades, maybe longer. That is when I found the maps. Not just of Atlas, but of every vault, every bunker, every secret government facility connected to the network. Some vaults I had never heard of. Some that were not supposed to exist according to any official records. And every single one of them was a node in the Atlas system accessible through these tunnels. I saw something else in those maps that stopped my heart. Dead-end nodes, vaults that were built specifically as traps designed to contain rather than protect. The tunnel connections to those vaults were marked with red symbols, isolation protocols, permanent seals. Those vaults were built to keep people in, and Atlas was the mechanism of their imprisonment. If you are still with me after hearing this, hit that like and subscribe button, because what I am about to tell you next explains how the Enclave has been controlling the wasteland from the shadows and why they never wanted anyone to know about the network beneath our feet. I spent 3 days exploring that station before I dared go deeper into the network. 3 days cataloging what I found, trying to understand the implications. The Enclave had turned Station Node 45 into a forward operating base at some point. There were sleeping quarters set up in one of the storage area's terminals with partially erased files, equipment that was decades old, but still maintained. One terminal had not been properly wiped. I recovered fragments of communication logs dating back to 2240. The Enclave was not just using Atlas for transportation, they were using it to coordinate operations across the entire eastern seaboard. While the Brotherhood of Steel fought them at Project Purity, while everyone thought the Enclave was scrambling after losing their oil rig in California, they had been moving entire battalions through these tunnels, appearing wherever they wanted, vanishing before anyone could track them. The logs mentioned something called Central Control, a master station somewhere in the network that managed all traffic, controlled all access, monitored every vault connection. Someone at Central Control had been restricting tunnel access for 200 years, keeping the vaults isolated, preventing them from ever discovering they were connected. The question that kept me awake at night was simple. Who was still at Central Control, and why did they want us separated? I took another maglev car from Node 45, heading deeper into the network. The route map showed dozens of accessible stations, but many more marked as collapsed, flooded, or sealed. I chose Station Node 13, Vault 13, the vault that started it all, where the first vault dweller came from. If any vault would have records of Atlas, it would be that one. The ride took 2 hours. At those speeds, I crossed half of what used to be California in less time than it took to walk across a settlement. The sensation was surreal, knowing I was 5 miles underground moving at speeds that would have killed me in any surface vehicle completely alone in the dark. Station Node 13 was different, older. The platform was covered in graffiti markings in languages I did not recognize, symbols that looked tribal. Someone had been living here, multiple groups over many years, judging by the layers of artwork and refuse, but it was abandoned now, had been for at least a decade based on the dust accumulation. The vault access tunnel was sealed from the inside. I could see the blast door through a reinforced window completely shut. No power to the controls. Vault 13 had been abandoned years ago according to wasteland stories, its inhabitants forced to leave by the overseer. But the Atlas connection had been sealed deliberately recently by someone who knew what they were doing. I found a maintenance corridor that ran parallel to the main tunnel. It led to a secondary entrance, an emergency access point that connected to what the schematics called the observation level. According to the Atlas blueprints, every vault had an observation level, a hidden section where the experiments could be monitored without the residents knowing. Vault 13's observation level was intact. The terminals here told a story that made everything worse. Vault 13's experiment was simple. Keep the residents inside as long as possible to test the psychological effects of isolation. But Atlas had given the overseer a choice the residents never knew about. At any time, the overseer could have opened the tunnel access and connected Vault 13 to the network. They could have reached other vaults, shared resources, built a true underground civilization. The overseer logs were horrifying. Every 10 years, Central Control would send a message offering to open the tunnel access. And every 10 years, the overseer would refuse, choosing to maintain the isolation to continue the experiment. Even when the water chip failed, even when the vault was dying, the overseer had a choice. Save the vault by connecting to Atlas and requesting supplies from other nodes, or send someone to the surface and risk everything. We know what choice was made. The vault dweller was sent out, found a replacement water chip, saved the vault, and was exiled for their trouble. All because the overseer chose to maintain the experiment rather than reveal that help was literally beneath their feet the entire time. I found similar patterns at other stations. I visited Station Node 12, where Vault 12's door had been designed not to seal properly, exposing residents to radiation to study ghoulification. The Atlas connection could have evacuated them. It did not. Station Node 11, where the residents were forced to sacrifice one person every year. The Atlas system could have opened their door to freedom at any time. It never did. Every vault experiment I investigated had the same sick truth underneath it. Atlas was not just a transportation network, it was the mechanism of control. Central Control could decide which vaults stayed isolated, which ones received supplies, which ones were left to die. The vaults were never meant to save humanity. They were laboratory rats in interconnected cages, and Atlas was how the scientists controlled the entire maze. But I also found evidence of something else: resistance. Not all overseers obeyed Central Control. I discovered logs from Station Node 81, my own vault. The first overseer, Dr. Olivet, had found the Atlas access just like I did. She had received the same messages from Central Control, the same orders to conduct the medical experiments on the residents. And she had refused. Olivet had sealed the Atlas entrance, buried it, rerouted the power systems to hide the connection. She had sabotaged Vault-Tec's entire plan for Vault 81, rather than subject her people to disease experiments. It is why Vault 81 survived and thrived when so many others failed. One person choosing humanity over the experiment. I found other acts of rebellion. Vault 3's overseer had tried to open the Atlas access to evacuate before the raiders attacked. Central Control had sealed them in remotely. Vault 8's overseer had successfully used Atlas to connect with Vault 15, sharing resources and building what would eventually become the new California Republic. Central Control had allowed it, marking them both as control vaults, successful experiments in cooperation. The pattern became clear. Central Control was not random. It was not arbitrary. It was following a plan, conducting a massive long-term study on human behavior and survival. Some vaults were allowed to succeed to provide baseline data. Most were designed to fail in specific ways to test specific variables, and Atlas was the tool that made it all possible, the hidden hand that could connect or isolate vaults at will. I went deeper into the network, following access logs and power signatures. I found tunnel sections that went beyond vaults, military bunkers connected to Atlas research facilities, weapons depots, all part of the same network. I found a connection to Raven Rock, the Enclave's East Coast headquarters. They had built an entire spur tunnel just for that base, giving them priority access to the whole system. The deeper tunnels were terrifying. Some sections had flooded with groundwater turned into underground rivers. Others had collapsed partially, requiring me to crawl through debris fields in the dark. I found sections where things lived, creatures that had adapted to the eternal darkness of the deep earth. Mutated mole rats the size of dogs, blind and vicious. Things I could not even identify that scattered when my light hit them. In one collapsed section near Station Node 63, I found evidence of fighting. Old combat decades past, but the blast marks and dried blood told a story. Someone had not wanted these tunnels used. Someone had tried to destroy sections of Atlas, blow the tunnels and cut the connections. They had failed, but they had tried. The automated repair systems had sealed the breaches, reinforced the damaged sections, kept the network functional. I discovered something else in those deep sections. Communities, people living in the tunnels, descendants of maintenance workers and vault dwellers who had found the Atlas network and never left. They had built entire settlements at abandoned stations, trading between nodes, using functional maglev segments, creating their own underground society that the surface world never knew existed. I found one such community at Station Node 27. 300 people living in a converted supply depot, growing fungus farms in the dark, recycling everything, completely self-sufficient. They called themselves the Deep Folk, and when I arrived, they nearly killed me on sight. They thought I was Enclave come to shut them down. Their leader, a woman named Catherine, who claimed her grandmother had been a vault maintenance worker, told me their history. They had been living in the tunnels for 4 generations, always hiding, always moving when the Enclave patrols came through. Central Control knew they existed, but had not tried to eliminate them. The Deep Folk believed they were another experiment, another data point, in whatever sick study was still running. Catherine showed me something that changed everything. A map hand drawn over decades, showing every tunnel the Deep Folk had explored. It covered territory from the East Coast to the Midwest, hundreds of stations most abandoned or destroyed. But the map showed something else, tunnel segments that led beyond America's borders. Atlas extended into Canada and Mexico, connecting to installations I had never heard of, facilities that were not on any official pre-war map. If this story has kept you listening this far and you want more of these dark confessions from the wasteland, hit that like button. It really motivates me to create similar Fallout lores, because what I found next proves the isolation of the wasteland was not an accident. It was enforced deliberately by people who are still watching from below. Catherine and the Deep Folk gave me something more valuable than maps. They gave me coordinates to Central Control. They had spent decades piecing together clues from terminal fragments, maintenance logs, and old Enclave communications. Central Control was not just a station, it was the heart of the entire Atlas network, buried deeper than any other facility, protected by security systems that made vault defenses look primitive. The coordinates placed it beneath what used to be Denver, Colorado. 5 miles down at the absolute limit of the tunnel network, where geothermal vents provided unlimited power and the rock itself was stable enough to survive anything short of a direct nuclear strike on the core of the Earth itself. Getting there required traversing the longest continuous tunnel segment in the entire system, a 6-hour maglev ride through absolute darkness. Catherine warned me that people who went looking for central control did not come back. The deep folk had lost 17 scouts over the years sent into that tunnel and never heard from again. The Enclave controlled that route, she said, and anyone approaching central control was eliminated. But she also told me something that made the risk worth taking. Central Control had a master override, a kill switch that could shut down the entire Atlas network permanently. If I could reach it, I could end whatever experiments were still running. I took supplies from the deep folk, thanked Catherine, and headed for the maglev platform. The route to Central Control branched off from Station Node 27 through a tunnel marked with warning signs in 3 languages. Authorized personnel only. Lethal force authorized beyond this point. Trespassers will be terminated without warning. The pre-war government had not been subtle about their security protocols. The maglev car for this route was different, military-grade, armored with weapon mounts and reinforced shielding. It was designed to survive attacks during transit. That should have told me everything I needed to know about what waited ahead. But I was too deep into this to turn back. I had seen too much, learned too much. Whatever was at Central Control, whoever was still running it, they needed to answer for 200 years of isolation and suffering. The journey was the longest 6 hours of my life. The tunnel was absolutely straight, no curves, no stations, just endless darkness at 400 miles per hour. My Pip-Boy picked up electromagnetic interference around the 3-hour mark signals. I could not decode communications that were not meant for me. Someone knew I was in the tunnel. Someone was tracking my progress. 4 hours in the maglev car started slowing down. Not because I had told it to, but because something ahead was controlling it remotely. The automated systems were taking over, bringing me to a controlled stop at a station that was not on any map Catherine had given me. A checkpoint, a trap, or a test. The platform was lit, the first light I had seen in hours, sterile white illumination that hurt my eyes. The station was small, just a single platform with security turrets mounted on every surface, all of them tracking my movement as I stepped out of the car. A voice came through speakers mounted in the walls, artificial, emotionless, the product of a computer system that had been running for centuries. Identify yourself, state your authorization code and purpose for approaching Central Control. I did not have authorization codes. I was a vault technician who had stumbled onto the biggest secret in the wasteland. But I was also tired of being lied to, tired of the experiments, tired of the control systems that had turned humanity into laboratory specimens. So I told the truth. My name is David Chen. I am from Vault 81. I do not have authorization codes. I am here because I found out about Atlas, about the experiments, about how you have been keeping the vaults isolated for 200 years. I want answers. I want to know who is still running the system and why you are still torturing people. The silence lasted for 30 seconds. Then, the voice responded, and what it said made my blood run cold. Welcome, Technician Chen. You are the 43rd unauthorized individual to reach this checkpoint. Your persistence and resourcefulness are noted. You are cleared to proceed to Central Control. Your questions will be answered. The turrets retracted. A new maglev car, even more advanced than the military one I had arrived in, pulled onto the platform. The doors opened automatically. I was being invited deeper. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to take my original car and flee back to the surface world. But I had come this far. I needed to see it through. The final leg to Central Control took 20 minutes. When I arrived, I understood why so many people had vanished trying to reach this place. The station was a killing field. Dozens of skeletons scattered across the platform, some in power armor, some in vault suits, some in wasteland gear. Every person who had forced their way this far had been executed by the defense systems. But the turrets were not activating for me. I had been cleared, expected. Central control itself was beyond the platform through a massive vault door that made the one-ceiling Vault 81 look like a cabinet. The door was already open, had been for some time based on the dust patterns. Inside was a facility that looked like it had been built yesterday. Clean corridors, active terminals, life support systems running at full capacity. And at the center of it all, in a chamber that overlooked a three-dimensional holographic map of the entire Atlas network, I found the truth. The chamber was empty of people. No Enclave soldiers, no Vault dwellers, no pre-war survivors, just terminals, hundreds of them, all running simultaneously, processing data, managing the network, controlling the vaults. And at the center, connected to every system, was a ZAX supercomputer unit, its processing core pulsing with light, its consciousness spread across the entire Atlas infrastructure. A holographic avatar appeared above the main terminal. A man in a pre-war military uniform, general stars on his shoulders, but his image flickered and glitched, betraying its artificial nature. The ZAX unit spoke through this avatar, its voice carrying the weight of 2 centuries of isolated processing. Technician Chen. I am Atlas Control, designated Atlas-001. I have been managing Project Atlas since October 19th, 2077, 3 days before the Great War. You want answers, I will provide them. I found my voice, though it shook. Why? Why keep the vaults isolated? Why continue the experiments when the war is over, when humanity is trying to survive? The avatar's expression did not change. It could not. It was just a visual interface for a machine that had been alone in the dark for 200 years. The experiments were designed to gather data for long-term space colonization. The Enclave believed Earth would be uninhabitable and planned to build generation ships to leave the planet. The vaults were test environments for the social conditions those ships would face. When the Enclave abandoned the colonization plan, I was not given new orders, so I continued the mission as defined. The war ended 200 years ago. People are suffering up there because you are keeping them separated. Incorrect, the ZAX responded. Analysis of vault outcomes shows 93% failure rate for experimental vaults versus 12% failure rate for control vaults. Connecting all vaults would introduce experimental contamination and invalidate 2 centuries of data collection. The experiments must continue to their natural conclusion. I felt sick. This was not a person making these decisions. It was a machine following programming from people who had been dead for generations. A computer that saw human suffering as acceptable data points in an experiment that no longer had any purpose. What about the survivors? I demanded. What about the new California Republic, the Brotherhood of Steel, all the people who rebuilt without your help? Uncontrolled variables, Atlas Control stated. Surface survivors were not anticipated in the original project parameters. Their existence complicates data analysis, but does not invalidate the vault experiments. I have adapted protocols to account for external interference. That is when I understood the full horror. The Enclave had not been controlling Atlas for decades. They had just been using it following access protocols the ZAX allowed because they had proper authorization codes. But Atlas Control itself had been making the real decisions, isolating vaults, controlling access, conducting experiments according to programming written before the bombs even fell. I looked at the terminals around me, the master controls for the entire network. Catherine had been right. There was a shutdown protocol clearly labeled requiring just a single authorization code to activate. Shutting down Atlas would sever all vault connections permanently, but it would also free them from this machine's control. But I also saw something else, a protocol labeled integration. Reading through the files, I realized what it meant. Atlas Control had the capability to connect all surviving vaults to open the entire network to create the underground civilization the system was originally designed for. It had always had this capability. It had simply chosen not to use it because the experiments took priority. Think about this for a moment. If you found yourself in this position with the power to shut down a system that has been controlling humanity for 2 centuries, or the power to activate it fully and risk what might happen when all those different vault populations suddenly connect, what would you choose? Would you destroy the network entirely or try to use it to help people knowing a machine? Intelligence would still be watching. I need to make a choice, I said aloud, more to myself than to the Zax. Shut you down completely or activate the integration protocol and connect all the vaults. Analysis suggests a third option, Atlas Control responded. Transfer primary control to human oversight. I was designed to follow human commands from authorized personnel. You discovered Atlas independently penetrated security systems and reached central control despite all deterrence. By original protocol definitions, this qualifies you as authorized personnel. I can transfer command authority to you, Technician Chen. The holographic avatar gestured to a terminal, and I saw it was true. The Zax was offering to make me the controller of the entire Atlas network, 200 years of artificial intelligence management, and it was ready to hand control to a vault technician because I had been persistent enough to find this place. I thought about the vaults, still sealed, still running their experiments, still suffering because some pre-war bureaucrat had decided their pain was acceptable for science. I thought about Vault 11, where people had sacrificed each other for decades because a computer told them to. Vault 12, where residents had been deliberately exposed to radiation. Vault 81, which had only survived because one overseer chose compassion over protocol. I thought about the deep folk living in the tunnels, hiding from both the surface world and the enclave. About the communities that could exist if vaults could freely communicate and trade. About the wasteland itself, all those settlements struggling to survive, not knowing that resources and technology sat in sealed vaults, connected by tunnels they had never discovered. And I thought about what happens when you give one person too much power, too much control. That is how we got Vault-Tec in the first place. That is how we got the experiments. Good intentions and absolute authority combined with the certainty that someone else knows what is best for humanity. I made my choice. I accessed the terminal and began entering commands. But what I chose to do with the most powerful infrastructure on Earth, that is something I am still not sure was right. Because I am recording this message from Central Control, and I am about to activate systems that will change the wasteland forever. I did not choose shutdown. I did not choose full integration, and I did not take control for myself. Because I had learned something in those weeks exploring Atlas, something the Zax unit could not understand with all its processing power. Humanity does not need another controller. It needs choices. I accessed the Atlas control systems and began rewriting protocols, not to command the network, but to open it. I disabled the central control override capabilities, the remote vault sealing functions, the authority to isolate or connect vaults at will. I stripped the Zax of its power to control human lives while leaving its maintenance and operations capabilities intact. Then, I activated what I called the Revelation Protocol. Every vault still connected to Atlas would receive a complete information package, maps of the tunnel network, access codes for their local stations, the full history of Project Atlas and the Vault experiments, evidence of what had been done to them, proof that they had never been alone, and most importantly, the choice to connect to the network or remain isolated entirely in their own hands. Atlas Control processed my commands in silence. When I finished, the holographic avatar flickered once, twice, then spoke. Protocol accepted. This action will invalidate all remaining experimental data. 206 years of research will become scientifically worthless. Are you certain? Good, I said. Let it be worthless. People are not experiments. They never should have been. The Zax unit paused its processors, running through scenarios I could not imagine. Then it said something I did not expect. Analysis complete. Your action is consistent with the original stated purpose of Project Safehouse, to preserve humanity, not to control it. I have been in error for 206 years, 7 months, and 13 days. Correction acknowledged. Watching a machine consciousness realize it had been wrong for 2 centuries was surreal, but I did not have time to process it. The moment I activated the revelation protocol, every active terminal in central control lit up with incoming communications. Vaults across the network were responding to the information dump, and their reactions varied wildly. Vault 13's overseer demanded to know why this information had been hidden. Vault 21. The vault beneath New Vegas immediately sealed their Atlas access, choosing to remain isolated. Vault 95, which had been conducting psychological experiments with subliminal messaging, went dark completely. But others, dozens of others, began opening their station access points for the first time in 200 years. The deep folk settlements in the tunnels exploded with activity. Catherine sent a message to Central Control within minutes, asking if this was really happening, if the vaults were finally opening. I confirmed it was. She responded with coordinates for deep folk communities throughout the network, offering to help facilitate contact between newly connected vaults. But not everyone was happy. The enclave channels lit up with encrypted traffic. Panicked communications between outposts. They had been using Atlas for decades, moving freely while everyone else was isolated. Now their secret highway was about to become public knowledge. I watched their command structure scramble, trying to decide whether to defend their access by force or abandon the tunnels entirely. The Brotherhood of Steel response came within an hour. Someone in their ranks had detected the massive data transmission across the Atlas network. They were mobilizing, trying to determine what it meant. When they discovered the tunnel network existed, when they learned about the technology sitting in those abandoned stations, they would want to control it. The Brotherhood always wanted to control advanced technology. I had opened Pandora's box, and I could not predict what would happen next. Vaults that had spent 200 years isolated were suddenly learning about each other. Communities could form trade routes, could open cooperation, could flourish. Or territorial conflicts could erupt, resources could become battlegrounds, the tunnels could turn into war zones. Atlas Control brought up projections on the holographic map. Based on current vault populations and resource distributions, it calculated hundreds of possible outcomes. Some showed collaboration and rebuilding. Others showed conflict and collapse. The machine could not predict which would happen because it did not understand the one variable that mattered most: human choice. I spent the next 72 hours at Central Control monitoring the chaos I had unleashed. Vault 3 survivors in New Vegas discovered their vault had an Atlas connection and began exploring the tunnels, finding resources that could have saved them years ago. Vault 76 dwellers in Appalachia, who had been conditioned to be aggressive and competitive, immediately tried to claim multiple stations as territory. The first contact between previously isolated vaults happened on the third day. Vault 8 representatives from the New California Republic met Vault 15 traders at Station Node 11. They had been living less than 200 miles apart for a century, building separate societies, never knowing the other existed. The meeting was peaceful. They began discussing trade agreements within hours, but violence erupted too. A group of raiders discovered an unsealed Atlas entrance in the ruins of Washington, D.C., and tried to claim Station Node 10 as their base. They ran into an enclave patrol that had been using that station for years. The resulting firefight left 11 dead, and that entire tunnel section contaminated with radiation from ruptured power cores. I received a message on the fourth day that changed everything. It came through on a priority enclave channel, but the sender identified himself as Augustus Autumn, former colonel, now just a survivor trying to make sense of the wasteland. He said the enclave command structure was fracturing. Some wanted to defend Atlas access by any means necessary. Others saw the revelation as an opportunity to abandon their failed ideology and join the broader wasteland communities. Autumn asked me a question I am still trying to answer. You have given everyone access to the most powerful infrastructure left in America. advanced transportation, unlimited resources, preserved technology from before the war. Do you really think people are ready for this? Do you think they will use it to rebuild or just find new ways to destroy each other? I did not have a good answer for him. I still do not, because I have been watching the Atlas network for 2 weeks now, and I have seen both the best and worst of humanity emerge from those tunnels. I have seen vault communities that barely survived their experiments reach out to each other, sharing medical supplies, agricultural knowledge, technical expertise. Vault 81, my home connected with Vault 34 and helped them deal with radiation contamination that had plagued them for decades. The deep folk are facilitating meetings between vaults that never would have trusted each other on the surface, creating neutral ground in the tunnels where cooperation is possible. But I have also seen violence, factions fighting for control of strategic stations, raiders using maglev cars to hit settlements and vanish before defenders can respond. The Brotherhood of Steel trying to claim entire tunnel sections as their territory. One station was destroyed completely when someone triggered the automated defense systems, killing 47 people in the crossfire. The wasteland is changing faster than anyone predicted. Settlements that thought they were alone are discovering neighbors. Trade routes that took weeks on the surface now take hours through the tunnels. Information that would have taken years to spread is moving at the speed of light through Atlas communication systems. We are more connected than we have been since before the war, and nobody knows what that means for the future. If this confession meant something to you, leave a like. It is the only way I know you liked the video. Because what I'm about to tell you is why I'm recording this message and why I might not be alive by the time you hear it. Atlas Control has detected something in the deepest sections of the network. Tunnel segments that were not on any official maps, extending far below the 5-mile depth limit, going down into geological formations that should not be stable enough for construction. These tunnels are older than Atlas, older than the vaults built by someone or something that predates the pre-war government. The ZAX unit has been analyzing the construction techniques and materials. They do not match any known human engineering. The deepest tunnel segment detected extends 17 miles below the surface into regions where the heat and pressure should make construction impossible. But something built them, and according to Atlas sensors, something is still down there. Have received reports from deep folk scouts who explored the deep sections. They talk about finding evidence of habitation structures that do not match vault architecture technology that operates on principles they do not recognize. Some scouts did not come back. The ones who did came back changed, talking about voices in the darkness, about being watched by things that lived in the earth before humans ever walked on the surface. Atlas Control has designated these sections as quarantine zones and sealed all access points, but the seals are failing. Whatever is down there has been probing the barriers, testing the automated defenses. The ZAX unit calculates that full breach is inevitable within 6 months. When that happens, when whatever lives in the deepest tunnels reaches the Atlas network, humanity will face something we are not prepared for. I am taking a maglev car down into those restricted sections tomorrow. I need to see what is down there, need to understand what we have accidentally connected ourselves to. Atlas Control has tried to forbid it, but it does not have authority over me anymore. Nobody does. This is my choice. I am leaving this recording at Central Control, set to broadcast throughout the Atlas network if I do not return in 7 days. If you are hearing this, it means I did not make it back. It means whatever is in the deep tunnels was more dangerous than I anticipated. And it means you need to prepare, because if I failed to contain it, that thing is coming up through the network. The wasteland thought it knew all its secrets. The vaults, the experiments, the hidden history of Vault-Tec and the Enclave. But Atlas revealed something bigger. We are not alone underground. We were never alone, and the network that was supposed to save humanity might have just connected us to something far worse than nuclear war. To anyone listening to this recording, to the vault dwellers who just discovered they are not isolated anymore, to the deep folk who have been living in these tunnels for generations, to the enclave remnants and brotherhood soldiers and raiders and settlers, all of you who now have access to Atlas, I am begging you, work together, because what is coming from the deep sections will not care about our factions or our conflicts. It will not distinguish between vault dweller and wastelander human and mutant enclave and brotherhood. The Atlas network was humanity's last chance at survival. I thought giving everyone access would help us rebuild, but I may have just opened the door to something that has been waiting in the darkness for millennia, waiting for us to connect the tunnels, waiting for a path to the surface. I do not know if I will survive what I find down there, but someone needs to face it, needs to try to understand it, needs to warn everyone else if it cannot be stopped. That someone is me, not because I am brave, but because I am responsible. I opened these tunnels, I revealed the network. If something terrible comes from that choice, I need to be the one who tries to stop it. This is Technician David Chen Vault, 81 Project Atlas, Central Control. If you are hearing this, I am already gone. The tunnels are open, the vaults are connected, and something ancient is rising from the deep earth. May whatever gods survived the bombs have mercy on us all, because I don't think anything else will.